Hi guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today I'm going to show you how to obtain this straight sort of shape to your Oncidium intergeneric, Wilsonara, whatever you want to train like this. Now this is a personal preference. I don't like to train all my orchids like this. Sometimes I like to make them pendant, but this type of orchid, which is a Wilsonara, does not have the tendency to branch out and become quite pretty if you let it flow. So what I like to do is try to train it to have this display with all flowers facing in the same direction so I can enjoy it. So I'll show you how to obtain this. I'm gonna use a Oncidium Orchid because I have it in spike, and hopefully this will be fun. Okay, so here I have an Oncidium Orchid. I did not intend to train this one because it does branch out a little bit. This one does not look so good if I train it like that, but for demonstration purposes, we're just gonna use this one. So this is a bit far along already. The buds are starting to open. You don't want to let your orchid reach this stage when you try to train your spike. So when you see that your spike has about 15 centimeters in length, that's the best time to try to shape it. So imagine this spike was a little shorter than this. So what you want to do first is try to train a pseudobulb to grow upwards. The way to do this is to pin it to something, a stake or the other pseudobulbs. I do have a video on how to train the pseudobulbs, so if you check right here somewhere, you can see an annotation or actually an info card which will show you how to do this. If the pseudobulbs are leaning over way too much, unfortunately you cannot do this shape. But this is a pretty good example. It's not very straight, but it will do. So when you see that your flower spike is about 15 centimeters or so in length, you need to try to find a place next to the pseudobulb or next to the flower spike as possible. So for me, this place, if I drag this further back, would be right here. At this point, I will try to insert the spike like so. So there you go, you have a stake next to your flower spike. Now once you inserted the bamboo stake, you can actually pin the spike. Unlike Phalaenopsis orchids, the Oncidium type flower spikes are not as fragile. So what I do is I use the clips like so. Now don't pin the spike where the buds are forming because you're gonna damage them. So check for a place that does not have buds. If you can see here, this particular place does not have buds growing, it's just the nodes on the flower spike, but usually nothing will come from there if you have a Wilsonara or that type of Oncidium intergeneric. So this would be the first step, and as your flower spike grows, you will need to pin it further up as well. So at some point, the buds will start to develop, and you can see the spaces in between the buds where you can actually place another pin. So as I was saying, as the buds develop, you need to find a place where you don't have any buds, where you can actually place a pin. And for me, this would be right here. So I will place a pin right here. And this way I do not damage the buds and I keep the spike straight. And furthermore, you need to keep it straight up until the top, and I'll show you what can happen if you don't. Now throughout the process, it is actually very important to always place the orchid in the same place or somewhere where the light source comes from the same direction. And what you're aiming for is actually the light source coming from the front, because the flowers will actually arrange towards the front, whatever front may mean to you. If the light source will always come from the front, the flowers will actually arrange themselves to open in the front. So you'll have that, let's call it cascading array of flowers that will face the same direction and will bloom facing you rather than all sorts of other directions. Now to help with that, it is actually a good idea to place a marker on the pot, maybe a post-it or anything that will signal you that this is the front of the pot. And this sign should always face you, because you might have to take your orchid and water it, go to the sink and so on. So when you place it back in its place, if you do this slightly, if you arrange it slightly different, the flowers will bloom in all sorts of directions. It is actually very important that you keep the same position. So the easiest way, place a marker, and the marker should always face you when you put back the orchid. If the marker faces you, you know this is the position in which the orchid used to sit. And pretty much that's all there is to it. I was telling you that you need to pin the spike all the way to the top, because if you don't and the flower spike goes to one direction, the flowers will tend to arrange themselves in that direction as well. So take a look what happens if I try to straighten the flower spike. So let's say, I did a poor job on this one, but let's say that I want to pin this orchid now. Look what happens to the flowers. the flowers will rotate as well, and this is not what you want. So it's not a good idea to pin it after the blooms are open. You want to do the training when the orchid is still in bud, because when it's gonna open, it's gonna get the proper shape. Now, as I was saying, this is a personal preference. If you'd like to leave your flower spike flow, you can obviously do that. But if you want to try out this thing, that's pretty much the way to go. All you need to do is stake the flower spike in advance before the flowers actually bloom. Never change the position of the orchid while it is producing the spike and the buds and the flowers. And by placing a marker that will always face you, you will always know the exact position of your orchid in the place where you keep it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to obtain this shape, that's all there is to it. Let me know how it goes for you. If you'd like to see more videos from me, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a daily basis. Feel free to leave me questions, suggestions, or other comments regarding orchids that you might have in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you will find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!